Whether or not this update, this significant update, is specifically connected to Talon or the homicide investigation with his mom, we're about to find out. Here's Chief Anthony Holloway.
Okay. It's with great sadness I have to inform you here today that Talon's body has been found. It is my condolences going out to the family and to his loved ones. We are sorry that it had to end this way. Through investigative technique, we were able to find an area around Dell Holmes Park that led the investigators to that area. The detectives had been there all afternoon, and while they were there, they were spotted an alligator with an object in his mouth. As the detective got closer, they fired one round to the alligator. The alligator dropped the object that he had in his mouth, and we were able to retrieve Talon's body intact. The father, Thomas Mosley, is now being charged with 2 counts of first-degree murder. I can tell you now that Talon's mom, Miss Jeffries, her body was stabbed multiple times. Until the medical examiner has a chance to look at Talon's body, we cannot tell you the cause of death. I would like to thank all the law enforcement agencies that assisted us today, or since Wednesday, and a special thanks to our detectives here at St. Pete Police Department. These men and women have worked tirelessly since Wednesday at 2:30, trying to find Talon for a better outcome. But again, that didn't happen. Needless to say, tomorrow we don't need the volunteers to come out to assist us in looking for Talon, but I just want to again thank everybody for volunteering to come out to help us. With that, remember this is an ongoing investigation, so I will try to answer some of your questions.
After almost 2 days of looking for little Talon, I know you've had so many crews on the ground searching, brought in, all hands on deck, like you said. I mean, this has got to be tough for your team to see things end like this after all your hard work.
It's very tough because these men and women, again, since Wednesday at 2:30, they've been working tirelessly trying to find Talon. And we didn't want to find him this way, but at least we can bring some closure to that family now. Again, there's emotions up and down because as they're doing investigating, they're following up the leads that we were hoping that we could find him alive. So these detectives and these law enforcement agency officers, they go through a lot. And tomorrow, guess what? They got to start all over again doing something else. But my hat off to these men and women for being able to do this. At this time, we're not going to talk about that. Again, we're still doing this ongoing investigation.
If someone spoke with you at all, kind of what was the reaction to once that alligator is shot, to seeing that as a human body that the alligator had, if the officer that found him was able to speak to that?
I'm sorry, you were asking about...
I guess, what was the reaction, I guess, to seeing the human body in an alligator's mouth after that shot was fired?
Well, I can't tell you that. Just think about anybody. The officer sees a body of a child. What would be your reaction to that? What would you think? So that officer, he or she has to, they've been working since Wednesday, and they see a child in an alligator's mouth. So they got to do their job, but at the same time, I can't tell you their reaction. I can tell you probably a lot of emotion went through their body, but they still had to do their job.
How does one separate the job and the emotion, if that's even possible?
These men and women do it each and every day. They come to work, they investigate a case. Now they got to put a case together to make sure that Mosley get convicted of this. So they got to do their job on that, and they do it. They do it quite well.
Chief, are those 2 counts of first-degree murder? Is that one for passion, one for Talon, or what are those counts for? Is he charged with both of their deaths, or just Passion's death?
He's charged with both of their deaths. 1 count for passion and 1 count for Talon.
But you said the cause of death for the child is still pending, right? So we don't know if he was deceased before he went into the lake or after?
That is correct. So that's what we're trying to determine.
And then where is this lake in relation to the apartment complex?
So how far away is that?
It's miles.
It's several miles.
So it would have to be an intentional act, not like he just wandered out.
So let's just give you an example. Where the incident happened is way out on Gandy in 4, Lake McGorry is at 22nd South.
Is any Wydell Home Park, is that where the father lives?
Again, this is an ongoing investigation, and through investigation technique, we were able to zone in on that area.
And Chief, we heard that Mosley went to the hospital with cuts. Can you tell us if there was a fight back from Passion, if she was stabbed by him?
Again, this is an ongoing investigation, and all I can tell you, like I said, when he went to check himself into the hospital, he had cuts to his hands and to his arms.
Do we know if he's still in the hospital?
He is still there.
Since your last update, has he said anything to you? Or has he said anything about anything?
When the detectives went out and spoke to him, he didn't want to talk to the detectives, and then later on, he asked for an attorney.
You said police fired a round at the alligator. Is the alligator, have you taken the alligator in at all, or is the alligator back in the lake?
The alligator was killed. Alligator was killed.
Alligator was killed, okay.
Any other questions? Thank you very much.
Breaking news on WFLA Now. Here's JV Buno. Breaking news on WFLA Now. Here's JV Buno.
The body of missing 2-year-old Taylin Mosley found miles away from the apartment complex in the mouth of an alligator, as confirmed by St. Pete Police Chief Anthony Holloway a moment ago, and Passion Jeffrey, the mother of the missing 2-year-old, is confirmed to have died from multiple stab wounds. The boy's father charged now with 2 counts of first-degree murder. Good evening, folks. JB here with you live on WFLA Now. You could tell that was a difficult press conference for Chief Anthony Holloway. Difficult news, of course, for so many in the Tampa Bay area, so many in the state of Florida, and many of you who have been tuned into this story around the world, so concerned about this poor, sweet little boy, 2-year-old Taylin Mosley, who is confirmed to be dead after his remains were found in the mouth of an alligator in a body of water miles away from the apartment complex where he was last seen. The person who is accused of these in these deaths, of course, being the boy's father, who, as we learned earlier on today, admitted himself to the hospital with cuts to both his hands and his arms approximately 45 minutes after a loud commotion was heard inside the apartment belonging to Passion Jeffrey, and of course where Passion Jeffrey was with her son, Taylin Mosley. An extremely difficult situation, of course, for not just the police department, but of course Taylin Mosley's family, Passion Jeffrey's family, who are living through their worst nightmare tonight, as we learn really the extremely difficult details. The body not just being found, but and really the very worst scenario being confirmed, but for it to be in the mouth of an alligator is just absolutely horrific. And this boy, let's not forget, just 48 hours ago was alive, breathing, wearing perhaps orange, as we've talked about here on this live stream, as he appeared to really love Hot Wheels. There was a 2-year-old, a birthday for his second birthday, a birthday party, for his second birthday. And Hot Wheels T-shirts were distributed. This was a boy that went by Tay-Tay, and he was so full of life. And in just 48 hours, his family's worst scenario, worst possible outcome has been realized, as Passion Jeffrey is confirmed to be dead of multiple stab wounds. And of course, now we have the confirmation that the body of the missing boy has been found. A lot of prayers are coming in across our social media platforms for the family, and an extremely difficult night, of course, for them. As far as some of the particulars here in the case, the fact that the body was found in the mouth of the gator miles away. What led investigators to that particular body of water? This is not the same body of water that we had for you on video earlier, that pond that was located at the Lincoln Shores apartment complex. This is now a different body of water miles away elsewhere in the St. Pete area. Also worth noting, when police discovered and they saw that something was in the mouth of the gator. Of course, if you are that investigator, if you're that officer, if you're that deputy, whomever you are making that discovery, you're of course just praying for it not to be the body of a little boy. But their worst fears were realized in that moment. They were forced to shoot the gator, at which point they were able to get access to the gator and realize that inside the mouth of that gator was this little boy, missing 2-year-old Talon Mosley, who you see here on your screen. These images hit different now. We were live all day today talking about Talon, talking about his family, and talking about how much we were, so many people were praying for him to be safely returned home. And now we see these same images in a completely different light because we now know that Talon Mosley is no longer with us. Both mother and son tragically killed, and now the charges of first-degree murder filed against the father. Now, as far as where this goes from here, now there were more questions, I believe. Yeah, so Trevor Sahaki is going to join us here, and I'm going to see if I can bring him on stream, and we'll see if we can get him in, because he's getting new information at this moment. So stick around here, folks, because we're getting some new details. And so stand by, folks. All right. So Trevor is going to be FaceTiming in here momentarily, and he is speaking with the Public Information Office at the St. Petersburg Police Department, and he's said to be getting new details. That press conference, Chief Holloway was answering some of the questions that he can answer at this stage in the investigation. But however, there are many more questions to answer at this particular time. Of course, so much of it is now focused on justice for Passion and justice for Talon. This is a person who is not in a jail cell, has not yet been booked on the charge of first-degree murder, because this person remains in the hospital for wounds sustained in an unknown event. We don't know exactly what led to the event, but of course, people by now, people on social media have been connecting some dots as to why he would be in the hospital with, we're talking about Passion Jeffrey being dead of multiple stab wounds, and the person who is charged with murder being in the hospital with cuts to his hands and his arms, according to police. So I think by now people are starting to put this all together. And again, let's remind folks, there was approximately 8:30 on Wednesday night. Okay, so Trevor Sahaki is going to join us in 5 minutes. He says he's got some new information, so stand by for that. He's the reporter that was at the press conference answering some questions. And I'm just reading here a couple of text messages, so stand by here, folks. I want to go over the timeline here. Sorry, we're tuning in our shot so that Trevor can join, so apologies there for the quick technical error. So the timeline is very important. At 5:30, in the 5 o'clock hour this past Wednesday, mother and son, Passion and Talon, are last seen alive by family members. Fast forward to later that night, 8:30 at the Lincoln Shores apartment complex. This is just 2 days ago. Apartment complex, 8:30 at night. A neighbor hears a loud commotion coming from the area of that apartment. Doesn't call police. We don't know what kind of a commotion it was. It was just a noise, an abrupt noise, if you will. A noise that was loud enough and abrupt enough to get that person's attention. And then, of course, 9:15, we know through the police investigation, St. Pete Police putting this out in the afternoon press conference today, that at 9:15, the boy's father, it goes to his mom's house. So now we're talking about the grandmother on the paternal side, goes over to the grandmother's house with wounds on his hands and wounds on his arms, cuts, admits himself to the hospital where he has been since. Even right now, according to Anthony Holloway, the chief there at St. Pete Police, says that as of right now, he is still at the hospital. And then, of course, the following day, the check that is conducted at the apartment complex when no one hears from Passion, and apartment staff members go into that apartment and discover the violent scene. Police then go and then begin their investigation. By 5 o'clock, an Amber Alert is put out. We don't know the timeline as to when Talon died. We don't know if it was on Wednesday. We don't know if it was on Thursday. Was it before or after the Amber Alert? We really don't know. The timeline with Talon specifically is still a bit murky. And we also don't know with Talon how exactly he died. We do know, of course, that he was found in the mouth of a gator, which is absolutely horrific. But what we don't know is exactly how he died. And then one of the reporters in the room asking specifically about motive and why somebody would kill their son. Again, accusations innocent until proven guilty. But why this would happen, why somebody would do this based on the allegations that have been put forth and by the police investigation that is currently ongoing, why somebody would commit these two extremely evil acts. Let's bring in the reporter that was inside the room at the press conference. 8 on your sides, Trevor Sahaki is joining us there on the right side of your screen. Trevor, you and I were talking via text. What's the latest that you're hearing in addition to what we just learned in the press conference?
Yeah, JB, I'm sure you went over it all in the press conference, so I'll only add on a couple things that we clarified with the St. Pete Police Department afterwards. We were asking about Thomas Mosley, the father that has now been charged with these 2 counts of first-degree murder. They said that he did have some juvenile charges. We were asking about past history, if the police have a history with Mr. Mosley in the past. They said that there's been some juvenile charges, and he has been Baker acted in the past, but that was about it in terms of anything like that. He was born on March 29th, 2002, so that would put him, I believe, that makes him 21 years old. So he also has been a juvenile for obviously most of his life, only had an adult record for the past 3 years, if you will. But like I said, he has had some juvenile charges in the past, Baker acted in the past. They did say as well that they have been searching Del Holmes Park and Lake Magori since this morning. That has been on their radar. They have been looking at it since this morning, and it was just an hour and a half ago. They said around 7 o'clock is when they found Talon's body in the mouth of that alligator, which the room, I'm sure you could hear it. It was absolutely silent when we heard that this young boy had been found in the mouth of an alligator. Absolutely horrible that is how police would have to find him. And I don't know if you could hear as well in the room just the questions from reporters about what it was like to find that, because they fired a round at the alligator, shot the alligator dead, and Talon came out of its mouth. It's a really, really tragic circumstance, and I know this family will be grieving for forever, probably, JB.
Yeah, to have the boy, to learn that the boy is deceased, of course, heartbreaking, but to learn just how his remains were discovered in the mouth of an alligator. But I want to make it clear, because some of the social media talk online has been, people have been posting about the alligator aspect of this story, and people are posting missing boy found in alligator's mouth. But that would lead somebody who is not familiar with this story to think that the boy wandered off and was found in the alligator's mouth. That is not what police are saying here, Trevor. Police are saying that the boy was murdered and just happened to be found in the mouth of a gator, really, again, miles away from the apartment complex.
That's right, JB. Police are still investigating that part, and so there still are a lot of questions. We asked, how does this boy, this 2-year-old boy, get on the opposite side of the city, get across the entire city and into a lake and into eventually the mouth of an alligator? Police are still investigating the timeline here, trying to figure out if and when this boy was killed, when Talon was killed, and how he ended up there. So I think you're correct in saying, we don't know if the alligator killed the boy or if, I should take that back, actually. We do know Thomas Mosley is charged with the boy's death, but we don't know the timeline exactly about how and when the boy got to that lake and into the alligator's mouth.
Right, because I think it's immediate to think that there's just a lot that we don't know, but of course our thoughts and prayers are with the Jeffrey family, with Passion's family, with the family of Talon Mosley here, because this is just absolutely extremely difficult news. There are going to be people tonight, Trevor, that are angry. Not only, we were talking about this earlier, not only do we have Passion Jeffrey, who is robbed of most of her life. She was young in and of herself. We're talking about somebody who's 20 years old. And now we're talking about someone who was quite literally robbed of virtually their entire life in 2-year-old Talon Mosley. So there's going to be anger out there, some just extreme anger from a lot of people. Justice, what does this look like now going forward? Thomas Mosley is in a hospital right now, and while innocent until proven guilty, there has to be of course, a thorough police investigation, and everyone is entitled to their day in court. Where this goes from here, as far as him being booked, and also too, before we even get to that, have we learned anything new about whether or not he has talked to police in any capacity, if he has cooperated at any stage of this investigation?
He really has not, JB. We asked the chief in that press conference, has Thomas Mosley spoken since the last time the chief said that he hadn't spoken? And the chief said no. So Thomas Mosley here, he's charged with 2 counts of first-degree murder, and he is not cooperating with police. As you noted, he is still in that hospital. He is still recovering from his injuries, and police said that it probably won't be for another day, if not a couple days, that they will be able to formally bring him to jail because he has to recover, like we said, from those injuries. But he is still not cooperating with police, JB. And as for the justice that you're asking about, and that you said a lot of people are angry about online especially, it's the justice system. It will work its course. If he chooses to, he will get a jury of his peers to decide on his fate. That is his right, just as it is yours or mine. And we have to, as always, have faith in the justice system to find the right course of action for the family, for Thomas Mosley. And of course, we at WFLA will be following this case as it goes through the justice system.
And find out the truth, right, Trevor? I mean, that's really what this boils down to. And right now we have this incredibly tragic conclusion, but how we actually arrived to this point, there's going to be so many questions put forth. In regards to Thomas Mosley, were you able to find, in talking to Yolanda, again, that's the spokeswoman for the St. Pete Police Department, do we have any idea as to what kind of relationship Thomas Mosley had with Passion, and then also subsequently, of course, then having with his son? Was he involved in his son's life? I mean, that's a huge piece of the puzzle here. Was he involved in their lives? Do we know that at this stage?
We don't, unfortunately. All we know is that Passion had recently moved into these apartment complex, the Lincoln Shores apartment complex, that is where she was found. We were told earlier today in a press conference that she had only recently moved there, maybe in the last month or two, and that she was, it was a much better circumstance than wherever she was living before. I believe the family said that in their remarks. So she was looking to really start fresh, get a new life, really happy to be out on her own with her son. So they did say Thomas Mosley was not living with the two of them, so I think that says that he was not as involved as someone who would be living with his son and the mother of his child. But they didn't say, if he would visit them regularly, what their relationship was. That is obviously details that we will find out, along with, as I mentioned earlier, the exact timeline here of when Talon was killed, how exactly Talon was killed. Those are all things that in the coming days and in the coming weeks will come out, whether that be via press release or via the court trial itself, if we get to that stage, JB.
Trevor Sahaki joining us from the St. Pete Police Department. Trevor, I want you to do me a favor, because Ari and some others are pointing this out. You can use #HeyTrevor, #HeyJB to get my attention here. The screen to my left lights up and is brighter when somebody uses a comment with one of the two hashtags that you see on the left and right sides of your screen. Trevor, what was Thomas Mosley's date of birth again? Can you check that for me?
According to St. Pete Police, March 29th, 2002. So he just celebrated his birthday, according to St. Pete Police.
That would be the day, March 29th would be the day that the noise was heard, was the day that these two were last seen alive. So we're talking about Thomas Mosley.
True.
Thomas Mosley, if the allegations are true, that this horrific set of events began on the birthday of the suspect. And again, what was the year?
His 21st birthday, JB.
Right, so 21st birthday, he is going over potentially, again, based on the allegations, if he is there that night and involved in a confrontation, if it does occur on that night, that Wednesday night when this loud noise was heard at the apartment complex, that would be the suspect's 21st birthday. Thank you, because we're taking so many notes here, and a lot of our commenters wanted to say, wait, are you sure? Do you have that right? That he was born March 29th and 29th, 2022? Or excuse me, 2002? And yeah, that's what we have here. Another just twist to this story. Don't know exactly how that fits in to the picture. We do know that Talon had just turned 2, so the boy's birthday and his dad's birthday falling somewhat close together. But as far as whether or not it was the suspect's birthday, if that had any connection whatsoever to this case, we don't know. But it's going to beg the question, Trevor, if there was any birthday festivities for the father on this past Wednesday, and whether or not Passion Jeffrey was there, whether or not Talon Mosley was there, and whether or not the circumstances and events of that day in particular led to the events that police are, of course, accusing Thomas Mosley of.
That's exactly right. We don't know. I think that will, again, I know your audience, JB, our audience at WFLA, has a lot of questions, and so do we. And unfortunately, there's only a set amount of questions that can be answered at this time. Know that we will keep asking questions. That's our job as reporters, as journalists, to keep getting those answers and keep pressing the police for as much information as we can get. And like I said before, I'm sure this will come out, more details about what exactly happened in the past 48 hours that would lead to such a tragic outcome here.
Let's, what we're going to do now, folks, is we are going to solely focus on the interactive portion of our live stream. What that means is that we're paying attention to you in the comment section on Facebook Live and on YouTube Live. But I know that Trevor, of course, has to get ready for our newscast tonight on WFLA News Channel 8. So, Trevor, you can tell me, do you have to hop off now, or do you have a few more minutes? You tell me what your schedule looks like for the next little bit.
I think I can give you about 10 more minutes of my time, JB.
Okay, great. Trevor, we'll spend another 10 or so minutes with us. We'll get him out of here at 9 so that he can get ready, of course, for the news tonight. Folks, if you use hashtag HeyJB or hashtag HeyTrevor, that's what we do here on WFLA Now with our live streams. What that means is that it shows up brighter on my screen. You can pass along a question, an observation, something that we might have missed on this live stream, or something that you thought was interesting about the police press conference, or if you just want to voice your support for the boy here in the center of your screen, Taylon Mosley, and his mother, Passion Jeffrey, even if you want to throw some orange hearts up in the comment section like so many people have, if you use one of our hashtags, we can animate your comment on screen and make sure that your voice is heard, because we know that there's a lot of hearts out there that are aching tonight for this 2-year-old boy and for Passion, robbed of their lives, quite literally, in Pinellas County, Florida. Let's get to some of the questions that are coming in. Jasmine wants to know, hashtag HeyJB, have they tried looking in phones? This is a question we've been trying to get answered now for really the last couple of days, Trevor. As far as, do we have any idea if Passion's phone has been retrieved by investigators over the course of the last day plus?
Unfortunately, we don't know that yet, JB. I would imagine that is something that they're looking for. I would imagine, because it was said during the press conference that Passion would check in with her family every day, whether that be via text or via call, and Passion and her son, Taylon, would call each other very frequently, if not, again, every day. And that was what led the family to call the apartment in the first place, which kicked off this whole investigation, is because they hadn't heard from her. So your viewers are a smart one in that they recognize these phones are very important to these people, and that is what kicked off this whole investigation. No word yet, though, on if they have recovered her phone and if that had anything on it that would assist in the investigation. As we know, locked phones, you have to go through a series of search warrants to get inside. So even if they do have the phone, if it's locked and the family hasn't unlocked it or can't unlock it, then that could be a bump in the road in the investigation.
Belle Louise on YouTube Live, hashtags for us both. Do you think that he'll be arrested soon if he has been charged? So there's these first-degree murder charges that are in the process of basically being applied to the suspect here, but he remains in a hospital. So do we have any idea next steps, Trevor?
Yeah, police said that he would be arrested soon, booked into the jail. They didn't give an exact timeline of when. They have to wait for him to recover from his injuries in the hospital. So we aren't sure exactly how long that will take, but they did say that he will be arrested and he's already been charged. So I wouldn't be surprised if there is some kind of police activity monitoring his room, or even inside of his room, making sure that they know where he is at all times.
The voodoo you do, hashtag HeyJB, and the orange hearts that have been a symbol for Taylon Mosley, because we have been noting here on live stream that he's just so often seen wearing orange. He even has orange sneakers behind this. I'll put away this comment for just a second. You can see his orange Nikes in that picture and this picture here as well. So that's why folks are using so many orange emojis, heart emojis in the comment section. So the comment, I am so upset by this. Is there a GoFundMe or some other thing that we can give to help this family? I want to proceed with some words of caution here, and Trevor knows exactly where I'm going with this. There are people out there that will use this as an opportunity to create fake GoFundMes or fake accounts to try to lure in people who are ready to give money to this family to support them through a horrific time. So Trevor, you know this. We've done this with other stories in the past. We, of course, verify specifically with the family. We have the family pointed out quite literally in front of us that this is their GoFundMe, but we haven't heard, obviously, it's so early on in this, we haven't heard any details about a GoFundMe set up yet.
That's correct, JB. We have not heard any details about a GoFundMe, and we have been in contact with the family today, so we will be checking over the weekend, and I will be in communication as much as I can with the family over the weekend to see if there is a GoFundMe and to hopefully get some kind of reaction from them, because of course, they are grieving as well. And one more thing I want to note as well, and this is a direct request coming from St. Pete PD. If you were planning on coming out to the I believe it was a Winn-Dixie in St. Pete for the search, no need to come out anymore. The St. Pete Police Department appreciates everyone who said that they were going to come out, going to help, going to search for Talon, but they said that search has now, of course, been called off. So get the word out. If you know anyone that was going out there, there is no need to go out there anymore. Make sure that they know that their willingness to help is very much appreciated. I think right now we all have to keep this family in our prayers, and if and when there is a GoFundMe, we will verify it and get it out to all of you.
I have started to see some pictures, folks, people who have messaged me and said, this is Thomas Mosley. And of course, while we can go through the steps to vet those images, we haven't done that yet. We know that people are asking, okay, so he's been charged in the past, and so where do we have a previous mugshot? People who want to see exactly who we're talking about here, and because he is, of course, has a juvenile criminal history and not an adult criminal history, we have no previous mugshots to go off of. Based on what we know at this time, information could change and we could learn more about his history, but as of right now, there is no image that we have verified that we can show you of the 21-year-old suspect. But again, let me emphasize this: 21st birthday was the day that mother and son were last seen, this past Wednesday. Whether that's a coincidence or whether there's a direct correlation, we'll of course look into that. And I know that Trevor will reflect that in his reporting, but yeah, just turning 21 this week. Let's go to Facebook Live. We have another 3 to 4 minutes with Trevor before he has to get going. We've got, let's start actually with Kathy's comment saying #KJB. So what are his injuries that caused him to be in the hospital? We know that they are cuts to his hands and to his arms, and that brings us to Lisa's comment. Has anyone questioned on how the father got the scrapes and the cuts and why they are so critical that he has to stay longer? This is a really great question from Lisa. We talked about this earlier, Trevor. Do we know how significant those injuries are? We are so used to us being in the media, and people in the public are used to this now. Minor injuries, severe injuries, being in critical condition, or having life-threatening injuries, those types of labels that are associated with somebody who's been admitted to the hospital. But we don't know if they're just minor scrapes and bruises or if they are major cuts. But if he's been in there for several days now, we can't speculate, but we don't know really the extent of these injuries, do we?
We don't, JB. All we know is what you said, is that he has cuts to his arms, cuts to his hands, and that he went to his mother's house initially after he got all those cuts, and then he went to the hospital, and that's where he is right now. I think your viewers make an excellent point in that, you get a paper cut, you're not going to go to the hospital. They must have been serious enough in order to warrant going to the hospital. I will say we do know that Passion was stabbed multiple times. The crucial word that the chief used yesterday was a very violent crime scene, a very violent homicide scene. So stabbing, a violent homicide scene, and the suspect has cuts on his arms and hands. Police haven't confirmed anything, but I think that just indicates that it was violent, and that however that scene exactly went down warranted most likely him going to the hospital.
Trevor, we know you got to get going. Before we let you go, your final thoughts here as you get ready for our newscast tonight on WFLA.
Yeah, I think the St. Pete Police Department gives their thanks to everyone who has shared his photo, gotten the word out, was willing to come out tomorrow morning to search for him. Their heartfelt thanks goes out to all of them, and we appreciate our viewers as well for getting this word out. I know that I was getting messages from viewers in other countries saying that they even shared it in their country just to spread the message, and I think that's so important when we have cases like this that happen in our line of work, JB, all too often, missing children, missing toddlers, and that's just, I think, a positive to take away from this whole experience, this whole situation, is that our viewers, the people at home, the people watching, are so willing to help out another person and do what they can for a member of the community. I think, it's important right now that we keep this family in their prayers. They're going through it right now, no doubt. There were tears at the press conference earlier today, and I'm sure there will be a lot of tears shed over the next couple days, week, month, year. JB?
Trevor Sahaki, give him a follow, folks, on social media, because as he learns new details tonight in Pinellas County, where he's standing right outside the St. Pete Police Department, he might be able to release some of that information out on his social media platforms, Facebook, Twitter, you know the deal. So, Trevor, thanks a lot for hopping on the live stream. We'll see you tonight on WFLA News Channel 8 at 11. Nice work out there, and thanks so much for joining us.
Thank you, JB.
All right, Trevor Sahaki, folks. Let's stay here with you live on WFLA Now and continue to go through some of the questions and comments that you have. And also, too, I just want to emphasize that we're also seeing a lot of lots of comments like this one. Donna on Facebook Live, hashtags for Trevor and I. These kind of stories make me sick to my stomach. Hug your children tight. Rest in peace, Talon. There are parents tonight that are likely joining us from multiple states, maybe multiple countries, that are trying to imagine what it must be like for this family, because your heart aches for them given what they have what they have learned tonight. And I'm sorry, but I'm talking really just about the immediate family members of Talon Mosley and of Passion Jeffrey. What has transpired is just heartbreaking, and any parent, grandparent can relate. We're talking about a 2-year-old, and it's just absolutely gut-wrenching. It's quite literally a shot to the gut. And so our hearts are just breaking for those families tonight. Let's go to some other comments that are coming in across our social media platforms. Somebody noted, hey, can you show us some more pictures of Passion, because we only had the one that was rotating. Yes, we did this evening get in some new photos, including the one photo that I have seen that's verified that we can publish on screen, that is of mother and son together. And that's going to cycle through here in just a second. It's a really heartwarming photo. It appears to be a graduation photo of some kind with Passion Jeffrey, and she's holding Talon Mosley together. And these photos are so precious. Here's a new photo of Passion Jeffrey. This is passed along to us by Annie Mapp, who was talking with family members today. And there's the photo that I'm talking about. There you see Passion Jeffrey, and there you see a much younger Talon Mosley in her right arm. So just heartbreaking to look at these photos, because we now know that both of them are no longer with us. And as we see Talon here driving around in what looks to be like a little mini SUV, one of the toy trucks that kids absolutely love to drive around. Yeah, it's heartbreaking to see these photos, knowing that they are no longer with us, and the pain that the family must feel tonight is just likely insurmountable, or at least it just feels that way. But I know that tremendous prayer is a tremendous amount of prayers, and the power of prayer is going to shine through for this family, and hopefully they are surrounded by a support system of love tonight, because that is going to be, it's just going to be an excruciating reality for the family members. And we saw them today. We saw their faces. They were at the press conference pleading for help to find and bring Talon home safely. And to see the heartache on their face is difficult to describe. It's difficult to write or put into words. So those images are painful. And so we'll continue, of course, to emphasize that your comments with our hashtag system, if they indicate that you're praying for this family, of course, it's not just about tangible questions that we can answer for you about this ongoing story. It's also about people just wanting to pass along the most powerful version of support and prayer to this family, and letting this family know that they have support from quite literally people around the world. Let's go back to some of the comments, and Orange Hearts still coming in. Hashtag KJB. Does the dad's family know anything? This question coming in from Matt. And so what's interesting about one piece of information, and I don't have this in my notes, but earlier today, St. Pete Police Chief Anthony Holloway says that they know now through their investigation that Thomas Mosley went to his mom's house at 9:15 on Wednesday night, the night that we now know is his birthday. and that he had cuts on him, cuts on his hands and cuts on his arms. But we don't know how police have that information. That's really important to point out, is that from the notes that I've gathered, I haven't seen anything as to how exactly police gathered that information. And so we don't know if the family, what the family knows, if they know anything, and whether or not they're cooperating with law enforcement. Because we know that Thomas Mosley, the father and the person who is going to be charged in this case with 2 counts of first-degree murder, we do know that he is in a hospital, but we don't know if he's in a hospital by himself. We don't know if he's surrounded by his, members of his family. We don't know if he's had visitors or friends come by, or what that look, if he is in essence in solitary confinement in his hotel room, or his hospital room all by himself, or if there's been communication between he and his immediate family or friends. So how exactly police have the information that they do, and what level of cooperation that there is, and how much, to answer Matt's question, how much the family knows is kind of unclear. But we do know that they did find out about him going to his mom's house at 9:15 that night with the cuts on both his hands and arms, and how they have that information is also unclear as well. We'll continue to look for those hashtags. Patricia is just saying, sending prayers for the family. Very simple comment here from her. Nerdy Girl is saying the same thing on YouTube Live. Thoughts and prayers for Passion and Taylon's family. Emily is pointing this out. Heartbreaking outcome, but glad that he was found because he could have been missing forever. I'm really glad that Emily brings this up. It's really difficult to imagine, but man, you never want to say how fortunate it is, but at the same time, and this is gruesome, and I understand the subject matter here, and people I think know where I'm going with this, but if this boy's body was found in the mouth of a gator, and that's of course what police are telling us, the boy's body was found in the mouth of a gator, and if the boy had been eaten by that gator, there's a chance that we never would have had closure for this family, that this could have been a missing persons case that went on for months, years, decades, if the person who is responsible for the crime, for the murder, doesn't give police any information, maintains their innocence, but really did do the crime of murder, and they'd never find the remains because it was taken by a gator and eaten by a gator, there's the chance that outcome is never provided to the family. So you never want to say how fortunate it is given the circumstances in this moment, but I do understand what Emily is saying, because this could have been one of those cases that we were talking about for years and decades, saying whatever happened to this little boy, he just vanished off the face of the earth. Now at the very least, there's at least just the tiniest bit of closure for this family, because they know that they know what happened. At least they know where he was found. As far as what happened leading up to that point, how a boy goes from happy in a toy truck to being in the mouth of a gator, deceased, and the victim of murder, how you go from those two polar opposites, those two extremes, how do you go from A to B, if you will, or A to Z? That is something that perhaps we'll find out and learn about in time over the course of the ongoing police investigation. But I do understand what Emily is saying, that there is closure to this family. Let's look for some other comments. We'll go over here to Facebook Live. We're going to spend a little bit longer here on the live stream just to answer some questions and provide perhaps some comfort. Let people know that if you're having a rough night learning of this news, this terrible conclusion to this story, that you're not alone. If you're looking up at the sky and wondering, my God, what kind of world do we live in where this can happen? This is especially, our Facebook and YouTube community, we're very much, I know some of our Facebook audience members by name. And when I see your comments come in with our hashtag system, I know who you, I know, because I've seen you for months or even years comment on our live streams. So I know that there is a tight-knit community on the WFLA Facebook page, on my WFLA JB social media accounts as well, and on YouTube Live through many stories that we have covered here over the last couple of years. Names like Cassie Carley, like Harmony Montgomery, like Gabby Petito, and so many others that we have looked into and just tried to get to the truth of those stories together. It's difficult to sometimes get to the truth. Sometimes we have happy endings, like with J.J. Rowland, and it's good to know that happy endings are still, of course, possible. And we always maintain optimism and hope, but I know that, when you hear about these just the evil nature of some of these news stories and what people are really capable of, it can be a really sinking feeling. But at least we're doing it here together, and we're able to at least answer some questions and provide you with a place where we can all, engage with this news together and respond to this news together. Yeah, and so Nancy wants to know. Nancy is a perfect example of somebody who I've seen in multiple live streams, including earlier today. Nancy Lyons wants to know, #HeyJB, what does this guy's mom say? He went to her house first. Yeah. As far as, now we're talking about Taylin Mosley's grandma. We're talking about Thomas Mosley, the suspect's mother. Because remember, 9/15, according to police, he goes to his mom's house, Taylin's grandma's house, with the cuts on his hands and arms. What does she say? This is very likely a tragic event for the entire family. And so we don't know. We don't know. But I would imagine that, I'm just going to say that I would imagine that the heartache is being felt on both sides of the family tonight. I don't think that the pain and suffering that is being experienced right now is exclusive to just the maternal side of the family. The pain is likely different, with very different characteristics and different circumstances. But this is an extremely painful event for both for the families involved here, and as well as close loved ones, really close friends, and even just friends in general. So Donna with a really, with a question, and I want to make this clear that this is we don't have any information on whether or not any of this information is true. This is Donna's viewpoint on this story, and asking about a particular scenario, saying if Passion and her son Taylin had just moved here a month ago, was she getting away from him and he followed her, or did he find them because someone told? The history and the exact relationship, and whether or not it was a healthy relationship between the two that suddenly took a turn, or the particulars and the dynamic between Passion and Thomas Mosley, as well as whether or not Thomas Mosley was involved in his son's life, and what that looked like from a family dynamic standpoint, is still unclear. Now, perhaps family members can provide us with some more context when they feel comfortable and speak out more about this story. If they choose to do so, they don't have to do so by any means. The family members that are going through tremendous pain and suffering may never want to talk about this story publicly because it'll just cause them so much pain. But if they choose to do so, the family dynamic might become more clear. But I'll leave you with this. If you're talking about a father who is in the hospital and approached by investigators who are trying to find that person's son, and then that father indicates that he doesn't want to cooperate with the investigation to find his son, that, of course, means something to investigators. And while we have our constitutional right to remain silent, as we've been noting earlier, it does speak quite loudly to people, not to the law as much, because the law says that you have the right to remain silent, but to people, to us human beings, when we hear that a father is basically saying, no, I don't want to speak regarding my son's disappearance, that speaks volumes to people. And so that's why over the course of really the last day or so, there has been quite a shift in how people feel as far as their social media comments in our comment section. Linda wants to know, #HeyJB, what made the cops look in the waters where he was found? And so more details and particulars will get released about that, but something brought, the apartment complex was miles away. So what brought them to that particular pond or that particular area of water remains unclear. Let's go back over. We've got folks joining us on TikTok as well, saying hello to Tina, Kathleen, Tyler, Sandy, joining us on TikTok Live. Rosa as well on TikTok Live. You can use your hashtags there as well. Let's go back to YouTube Live as we wait for some of the TikTok comments to come in as well. Carrie C just says, #AJB, what a beautiful little boy, praying for the family and all involved. May him and his mother rest in peace and justice be served. Just want to put away the comment so that passion is seen here on your screen as well. It's a very kind comment from Carrie. And I'm going to be able to stay here with you live for about another 5 minutes here, folks, before we have to wrap up our live stream. We always try to stay positive on these live streams. I always try to instill hope in people. And I tried, let me explain why I try to do that. I'm very well aware, and us reporters, we know how often bad news happens and reaches people. We know it. We see it. We live it because it's it's very much part of the fabric of our industry. Terrible news is so frequent, and bad news headlines are so frequent. And so I try to, and I can just speak for myself, I always try to take an approach of being positive and optimistic and trying to instill some hope when I cover stories like this, because sometimes it's what people need to hear. It's just somebody with a microphone in front of their face being hopeful. And so if that helps in the situation, and some people say that it is helpful, that's I'm glad to hear that. It's just the approach that I'm always going to take, because I always want there to be good news. I never root for bad news. I never root for the worst outcome. I'm always just trying to bring stories to people that, that's why when we celebrated with JJ earlier this year, that was such an uplifting moment. I said that was after the shooting that had occurred in Orlando that claimed the life of a news reporter, and it was a shooting that left multiple dead, and it was a really rough week, and that's why I was talking about how good news in that week was so sorely needed, and it's a reminder that there are positive outcomes to horrific situations as well, or terrible or scary situations as well. Haley wants to know, #HeyJB, if the dad was in the hospital since Friday night, how do they know it was dad that killed Talon? Do they know? No, I think you're getting this mixed up. The exact time as to when Thomas Mosley admitted himself to the hospital is unclear, but it was believed to be shortly thereafter, sometime in the aftermath of him going to his mom's house with the cuts on his hands and his arms. The exact time, we don't know. But when they started really doing thorough investigating on this story, he had already been in the hospital, as we understand it. That's what we have been basically been told. And so Friday night is not an accurate description, Haley. It was earlier than that, as we've been told by St. Pete Police. Leah wants to say, #HeyJB, there's been very little information on Thomas Mosley, like where he was from or lived, what kind of past does he have that would have led him to murder? Again, innocent until proven guilty. And we have to remind our audience of that. Leah, with her comment on screen, it's important for us to remind people of that. And while the charges, of course, and everything that we have learned up to this point certainly point in one very specific direction with this story, we have to remind our audience, innocent until proven guilty, and the person is entitled to their day in court. And we'll, of course, follow the process from this point forward. But as far as the information on Thomas Mosley, so let me explain. And there's an answer for this question, Leah, why there's been so little. Up until this point, he has only been a person of interest. He has not been officially labeled as a suspect, and they knew exactly where he was as far as being in that local hospital. So they were not putting out his identity at this time because, up until this point, they weren't putting out his identity because it was an active and ongoing investigation. Now that we have his identity, look, I'm going to give everyone my 2 cents, and I don't do that too often, but in reading into Chief Holloway's, that was a difficult press conference for the police chief of St. Petersburg, Florida. And so while in normal situations when an announcement of an arrest is made in a press conference setting like that, there is usually a far longer Q&A and a lot more questions that are asked. There usually is an extended Q&A. And I think for what it's worth, I think that Chief Holloway has done a really good job of answering as many questions as possible. And there could have been a lot more questions asked tonight. But look, this is my take on this, reading his body language and reading his demeanor. That was a difficult press conference to carry out for him tonight, for him to break that news to people. And so it was a bit of an abbreviated Q&A where there were many more questions, I'm sure, that could have been asked about Thomas Mosley's history, where he has lived, what led him to this point. But, perhaps this is still such an ongoing investigation that might not be information that he has at his fingertips. So that's why we don't. It was a press conference that where we learned some really horrific news and the suspect's past and his history and the dynamic with the family and his relationship with his son and the relationship with his son's mother. All of that wasn't really fleshed out, so to speak. And so perhaps in subsequent media opportunities, we can get a little bit more into the particulars as to Thomas Mosley's history and what led to the accusations that we now have currently against him. I don't remember him saying this. Julie Songs, I don't remember him saying this. I said earlier that there is a scenario at play where the suspect could be. Why would a suspect want to execute their constitutional right to remain silent? Perhaps it was because you're waiting for a lawyer, waiting for legal representation. I mentioned that earlier as a potentially plausible scenario as to why somebody would not want to be speaking with law enforcement given the circumstances. And so that's where things stand. I do not recall any police official saying, Chief Holloway saying that was the reason. Yeah, I'll just mention, with this comment in their media appearance, Passion's family really did not want to talk about Thomas. And I think that others also felt the same way. That when the press conference was being had earlier, and you can watch that press conference on your platform of choice, and when Taylon's father was brought up in the press conference, there didn't seem to be much interest from the family as far as going into particulars on answering that question. So. Oh, S is saying that I might have missed this. I'll have to go back and listen to the press conference again as far as, okay, so he did ask. I missed that. Everybody who's pointing it out saying that the chief said that he did ask for a lawyer. Exactly why, again, interactive journalism is so helpful, because while we are quite literally responding to this news and reacting to this news and also presenting this news to you, if I missed that, that's where our audience can come in. So according to the members of our audience saying that there was a request for a lawyer. So thanks, guys. It's been a long day. I was home chopping vegetables. yeah, it was my turn to cook tonight. And I was home chopping vegetables when this news came in, and rushed in, and here we are. Really sad. I was really hoping that it would be good news. Because I'm just always trying to be hopeful, but it was not good news. So this is a question I've seen repeatedly. Kelly wants to know, did he throw him in the lake and the gator just got him? Just don't know. Don't know. It's a difficult thing to visualize, right? How father could do that again, allegedly do that, but we don't know how the boy went from being murdered to being in the mouth of a gator. Well, folks, it's time for me to get to wrap up the live stream. Really heartbroken to have this news tonight that that 2-year-old Taylon Mosley has passed away, has died as a result of murder, according to Police Chief Anthony Holloway. Suffering the same fate as his mother, according to police. His mother, Passion Jeffrey, being stabbed multiple times and killed. The boy's father, Thomas Mosley, face multiple murder charges, one for each of the two victims, as we see the two there together. That mother and son there together in that one picture. Yeah, just an absolute heartbreaking live stream. Always difficult to talk about. When the worst possible outcome is realized, that's of course difficult for everybody. It's difficult for law enforcement. It's difficult for us here at the station. It's difficult for all involved, but it's most difficult, of course, for the family. Our hearts and prayers, with that family tonight, because those who are suffering such tremendous pain, it's hard to put into words how their lives have radically changed in the last couple of days, and how things have gone from seemingly relatively what we come to know as normal to now quite literally living in a nightmare. It's difficult. But folks, we're going to be wrapping up our live stream here. I'd like to thank, of course, everybody joining us. Trevor Sahaki, give him a follow on social. He might have details over the course of the night. Our story on WFLA.com, the WFLA app. You can see that, of course, in the pinned comment in this social media post. Also, the description on this video. One last thing before we go, and this is just something that we can do that perhaps will provide some comfort, whether it's for people who have been hopeful for a positive outcome for this story, or our live streams do tend to find people that are close to this story, sometimes even immediate family members or extended family members or friends or loved ones or somebody who went to school with one of the victims. Our live streams have a way of finding those people too, and I'm very cognizant of the fact that our live streams might have found those people. And so, the orange heart has been such a symbol in our comment section. People, especially on YouTube Live, you should see YouTube Live right now. It's just orange heart emojis. And so if anybody wants to just express their support for the family that is grieving tonight and want to do so in a way that is unifying, the orange heart is something that has really been, that has just kind of come around organically out of nowhere. Orange is almost in every photo. It's just, I can't tell if it's a coincidence or if there's some special meaning there. But orange, look at all these photos and you find something that's orange. Again, could be a complete and total coincidence, or it could be something more that we just are unaware of. Here's almost every photo. Taylon is wearing some kind of an orange piece of clothing, or his sneakers are orange. So that's a good way to at least wrap up our live stream, to let people know that if they want to express themselves in that way, in a loving and supporting way for this family that is grieving tonight, that they can do so with even just that very simple gesture, that very simple emoji in our comment section. The very latest on this story on WFLA.com, we're going to be following up on this story as far as where this goes from here. The Justice for Passion calls, the Justice for Taylon calls. There's going to be quite a, I'm sure, there's going to be a demand for justice. I can only imagine. And so we're going to follow up on that here at WFLA. Anything that we get, we're going to continue to dig for information. But also at the same time, one of our commenters asked earlier about a potential GoFundMe. Do not be fooled into following an account that claims to have a link to a GoFundMe for this family. Make sure that you get it through either us or through law enforcement, okay? Do not get hoodwinked and tricked into donating your hard-earned money to somebody who's just trying to take advantage of a desperate family or desperate situation. So please be mindful of that. And also, too, there was another comment. People were asking, is there going to be a vigil, a candlelight vigil of some kind? All of that information will get posted on WFLA.com anytime that we hear about it. And I will post it as well on my socials. So at WFLAJB on every account, Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, and TikTok. I'll do my very best to post as much as I can immediately once we learn of that information, whether it's related to a GoFundMe or whether it's related to the formal arrest itself or a court appearance for the suspect or whatever it may be connected to the story. I'll do my very best to post it on my social media accounts. You can also follow the great reporters who've been doing excellent work on this story, just providing us with the very latest on the ground in Pinellas County. Annie Mapp, Nicole Rogers, and Trevor Sahaki, as well as some others as well at the WFLA inside WFLA News Channel 8. So thanks so much for joining us. A big thank you to our moderators as well, and the latest on this story and the continuing developments, all updates on WFLA.com, the WFLA app. Thanks so much for joining us. I'm JB Buna. We'll see you next time on WFLA Now.